studio would get paid $8,000 to $10,000 an episode. That includes any kind of, I don't know if you, I mean, this is gonna get really technical, layback, master tapes, like one master tape is $500. Do you know what I mean? Like any sort of transferring stuff, paying a translator, then paying an ADR writer, paying somebody to time code, because you have to manually time code everything in, to then you have to make a work print video, that's paying an engineer for all of their work, then paying all of the actors who come in, paying the director who comes in, it's all hourly, and then also any of your producers who are scheduling, who are then reviewing everything to see that everything is accurate, approving scripts, going back and forth, then approving, that's also paying for any pickups if there are any mistakes, paying somebody to mix it, so all the levels are fine, paying somebody then to do video assets, which means works on credits, any sort of, if there's layovers, if they're not layovers, if they're changing anything, the song, the visual, if they have to edit out blood, all of that has to be paid for. It's a lot of money. Then they have to lay it back onto a master, then they have to print the DVD, they have to replicate the DVD, somebody has to design somebody has to write all the copies, somebody has to design all the images, then design all the menus. That's a lot of stuff to do. And before, the average was something like $8,000 to $10,000 an episode. It was reasonable, Now, people are asking to do it for $3,000. So that means everybody who works in anime, everybody has to take a pay cut. But if they only work in anime, they work so much harder, And so that means actors now, we don't get to finesse performances because actors aren't, their rates are not gonna go down. They're not, Well, they're just not gonna work for lower rate. But you can work them faster because they work for an hourly rate. So maybe you wanted a performance to be just right, you want to do more takes? No, a couple takes, And that's why maybe you hear the same people because you're not gonna risk it on a new person that's gonna, can only do 20 lines an hour when you want someone to be able to do 30 or 40 lines an hour. So I mean, on one hand, it's a little bit, there's more anime out there and I think people are figuring out a way to make it work, to still break even or make money at these rates, but it's a lot tougher. I don't know, ever since the quake, I haven't been back to Japan to kind of assess what was going on there, but I know that, a while ago, even 4 or 5 years ago, when I was talking to my colleagues there, just the people who worked in anime just left the industry. They went to work on film or video games or get more of a normal day job because they just couldn't make ends meet. And if you'll notice, a lot of, on one hand it's kind of good, but a lot of the voice actors who work in anime, especially out of LA, they do other things. They do other voiceover, I do original animation, I do video games, I do directing, because before, at the height, when there was a lot of anime going around, I made a living solely doing voiceover for anime. I can't do that anymore. Maybe what I make to make a living, 10% of it is from anime dubbing. And it pays the least. So, I don't know, so it's really hard to say. On one hand, it's they're still producing stuff. I think they're trying to figure out a way with, whether it be in inviting more voice actors out, because what Funimation and some studios realize is, hey, if actors go to conventions, they'll want to sign stuff, and then people will want to buy DVDs more, that's how they have to get people, because it's really all about buying product. And even the goods that you have, the toys and stuff like that, they're sub-licensed. So if it's official and not a bootleg, the original studio gets something for sub-licensing, but the US studio doesn't. They don't have merchandising rights half the time. Funimation might have some merchandising rights for stuff, but it depends on who gets merchandising rights, It's not just because I buy a pencil board, it means that it supports certain people who worked on the show, so. Was that confusing, or was that complicated, or? So yeah, that's it. And I understand if you don't have money, you don't have money. For me personally, I had a friend who I love Doctor Who. Yeah. And I love a bunch of BBC shows, and I literally had a friend who would come over with this huge hard drive that he would have BitTorrented a bunch of stuff, and he would, just dump the stuff on my computer, and I don't really do that anymore. Like, I don't, like, if someone's like, oh, I have the new Sherlock, or I have, Misfits or whatever, I'm like, it's okay, I just won't watch it, or I'll DVR it on my DirecTV, or I'll go and I'll buy a box set, or I'll borrow a box set from somebody who bought it, because that's fine, do you know what I mean? But I'm not going to get illegally downloaded copies to watch for myself, So, sorry, someone had a question. Yes, over there. It's you.
So, I heard in another panel you did about some of the technical difficulties in the Unicorn script adaptation with all the technical jargon and stuff.
Yes.
But, you mentioned that you've had access to, these people from Japan who do things and they can check things.
Yes.
So it seems that the script adaptation had almost more backup than usual.
Yes, it's true. It's
more difficult or easier, you think, for your script adaptation to have all that kind of background?
Well, here's the thing. It makes more work. I don't know that it's like, because, if you get something wrong, let's say you don't have any backup, right? And you get something wrong and you misinterpret it. Half the time you don't know you misinterpreted it, but nobody's there to check it. So that's what ends up happening. So it's less work, you know what I mean? But if there's people over your shoulder looking at it and saying, no, I don't think this is right. Wait, do this again. Do this again. That's really what it is. And then what, so the unicorn is maybe a little bit more complicated than Berserk. Because you're looking at, 30 some years of Gundam history, so there's a lot of terms, there's a lot of stuff there, so it's a bit, and then sometimes the people from Sunrise are like, oh, this means this, and then another person from Bondi Visual will be like, no, I don't think so, I actually think it's referencing this, and then I'll just let them go, like, sort it out, and they're like, oh, and then they'll be like, no, okay, it means this, and then literally, while we're recording, they're like looking at the script and like, oh, no, that's wrong, it means this, like, it's so confusing, because it's Gundam, it's Gundam. Are you anybody here into Gundam? Well, so you know that's complicated, right? It's like totally complicated, so. All right, any other questions? Yes?
Since you mentioned it, I gotta ask, who's your favorite doctor?
Oh. My favorite doctor is Tennant. I feel really generic for saying that, but he's my favorite doctor. But you know what? Okay, here's the funny story about Doctor Who. I haven't seen the old Doctor Who. I haven't either, even though I guess I'm not a real Whovian.
I don't care. As long as people are watching the show and it doesn't go off.
But when I was a child, the show would air on TV, and I don't remember what I watched with my family, but there was whatever show was on right before Doctor Who on PBS. We would watch as a family together, and then the next thing would be Doctor Who. And that theme song and the opening title credits scared the bejesus out of me so much. I had no idea what the show was about, but like as soon as that other show ended, I would start screaming for my parents to turn off the TV or to change the channel because I did not want to see the opening credit theme song because it made me so scared. I would like run in the other room. That's why I never, see as an adult, I was like, oh, it's that scary show. And now I find out it was more silly than anything else. That theme song just frightened me as a child. And the little, I was really young. I was like, less than 10 years old probably. I was like really young, so yeah. It's in the back.
What do you think of the new Doctor?
I'm not gonna judge until I see. By the way, I'm behind, so no spoilers. The last episode I saw was Amy and Rory's. I'm a whole, yeah. Because I watch it with a friend, and so both of us have been busy, so we haven't watched it together, so it's, yeah. It was like Game of Thrones, like, so mad at the internet. So mad at the internet.
Yeah, but that's built
spoiled the Rory and Amy episode too. Well, here's the thing. Even if I didn't know what was going to happen, you knew something was going to happen. And you knew it was going to suck. Because everyone's like, oh my God, it sucks. Oh, it's so horrible. I can't believe. So you're like, immediately like, okay, it's called Red Wedding. Okay, all right, yeah, so people are going to die. And it's going to all be my favorite characters. And this is I videotaped myself watching it, actually. I haven't watched that yet, though. But literally, it was like, as soon as the sound was like, I was literally like, oh no. Gonna happen, no. And then at the end I was just like, that sucked. And then I expected the last episode of the season to be like really good, because that's how it was. Like, was it like first season, like, you know, after the second episode, that last episode really sucked, then the last episode you're like, dragons, you know, like you had like a good episode. So I was like waiting, when's the awesome thing gonna happen? And then I was like, that's it. Yeah. Well, because you kind of feel like they have to do something awesome, or everybody's gonna be like, F you, I'm not watching this epic show anymore, you know what I mean? So, but, yeah. Alright. Yes?
So, just in general, you know, working in an industry where you have really rabid fans, and you have...
Rabid. You know what that means? That means that they have rabies.
Other meanings, you know, but things like Haruhi, where there are multiple novels that go on beyond what the show does, Gundam that has a rich history that you may not have been involved in. What is it like when you go to conventions and you have these people that arguably, you know, might be asking you about things that are so far off what you've ever been involved with? Or just certain things may be better than you.
Well, I always find it really, I mean, it's very flattering to me. I feel like I grew up kind of a geek and nerdy and a geek, and I just don't have time to be as geeky as I would like to be. Like I love Doctor Who, I love Game of Thrones, I love Buffy. I went to a sing-along of the musical episode of Buffy in a movie theater. So awesome. People like brought dry cleaning, like, and started singing in the aisles and stuff, and it was so cool. It was like Rocky Horror, but it was the musical episode of Buffy. And then Joss made a surprise appearance. My life was complete. Anyways, so even if I'm not into that show, because I think like when you work on something, you kind of have to kind of put another hat on, and there's a level of professionalism. So you could really like it, but I don't ever like super geek out. But I mean, I always think it's cool because I feel like I understand it, because I feel that way about other things, you know. I always feel bad though when they expect me to know something and I don't, you know. Or sometimes some people don't quite get what you do, and they think just because you're involved in the show that you do all this other stuff. Like, I get a lot of people saying like, hey, I wrote a sequel. Before Eureka 7 AO came out, they'd be like, I wrote a sequel for Eureka, here, you know, can I email it to you? Will you do the voice in it? Can you talk to Japan and see if it'll get made? So, and I don't have, I mean, one, I can't do the voice for it because, you know, there's licensing and rights issues, and two, I don't know, it takes a lot to get a show made. Like, so some people don't quite get that. I mean, I think it's really sweet, you know, but I just don't know, I feel bad because, you know, you're disappointing somebody, you know, or if they ask you something and you don't know the answer, and then you're like, I don't know the answer for one, and then two, I feel like I'm disappointing them. So it's more about that than anything else. Yes, you were there. Okay, my weird quirk is that I like to work out. I know you can't tell from looking at me. It's not that, okay, here's the thing. I don't like to work out. I don't like to work out at all. I hate going to the gym, but I'm really small, and as small people know, you have to keep moving because the weight just comes on like that because you're not stretched out, it doesn't get distributed evenly. You only have, I only have 4'9" of the height of fat distribution or whatever. So I try to keep active whenever I can, and I hate working out, so I try to do things that keep myself moving that don't seem like working out. But it occurred to me that like when I'm in the booth, I'm just standing there. So I always stand, I don't sit. So in between takes, like I do like tricep dips, or I do squats, or I do calf raises. So that's my thing. Yeah, you can ask any director who's worked with me if I work out in the and then when I'm directing, it's even worse because you have to be sitting, and it's like the whole day. When you're like voice acting, it's at most like 4 hours, right? So so what I do on break is like I'll do push-ups. I hate push-ups. I'll do push-ups and sit-ups. And actually, one time, Liam O'Brien, you guys all know who he is? So Liam and I kind of co-direct a lot of the Resident Evil games. Liam was in one room. We were both in the same studio at Just Cause. He was in one room and he was directing Resident Evil 6. And then I was directing Resident Evil Dark Side Chronicles. So I did my classic thing is when I was gonna do push-ups, you know, on break. So I'll do like 20 push-ups each break that I have, or in between actors. So because I'm snarky like that, and Liam is like he calls me his white sister, and I call him, no, he calls me his Asian sister, I call him my white brother. And Jameson, my engineer, is like really into working out. So when I was doing push-ups, then he was like, I'm gonna do push-ups too, and he like did even more. I think he did like 40 or something. So I found a piece of paper and I taped it to the studio door that he was working on, and I wrote the date, and then I wrote push-ups, and then I wrote Stephanie, and then I wrote 20, Jameson, 40, and then I wrote Liam, 0, right? And then it just became a thing, like all week, we were like having a competition between the two rooms. So the first day was push-ups, and then the next day was sit-ups, and I totally thought I was gonna own the freaking sit-ups, because guys don't do sit-ups as well as girls, and some of those guys, he had a bigger room, because it was a bigger game, so he had like a lot of Japanese clients, and we even got some of the Japanese clients to work out, but he had like way more. I like had one Japanese client, he had like 3 people in there, and so we were doing that, and then we had a competition, so I totally thought I was gonna own the sit-ups. But he killed me by like 100, and I blame Roger Craig Smith and Yuri Lowenthal, because they must be super competitive guys, because literally like, for something like sit-ups and stuff, like I'm not doing it as I'm directing it, and the voice actors generally didn't do it as the director. What they would do is like when they went on break, it was like, oh, 5-minute break, 15-minute break, they'd come out, and then they'd do the sit-ups or the push-ups or whatever. Roger and Yuri would like, in between takes, if they were like editing something, they'd be in the booth and be like, oh, where'd Yuri go? Like, because he disappeared from class, and then they'd be like, oh, he's doing push-ups, and then Calvin would be like, all right, just do 50 more, and so they killed me that day. Anyways, so that's my quirky thing of that. I think we're like almost at time, we're a little over, yeah. Do you guys have any last questions? Yes, go ahead.
Favorite role so far?
This is my standard answer, and it's true. My roles are like my children. I have favorites, I just don't tell people who they are. Actually, truthfully, it just changes all the time. Like you start thinking about one, and then you're like, oh, I don't want to think about this one. I can't. I'm really bad at favorites. I'm like the person at the restaurant where I want to order the entire menu. That's why I have to work out during my sessions. All right, you guys have been awesome. I have autographs right now in Crystal Ballroom A and B. And then tomorrow at 1:30, there's a Gundam Unicorn panel in this room. And then there's another signing 3 to 5 tomorrow. So, oh, and you guys can follow me on Twitter. It's just my name. So, I mean, for all you guys, if you were following me on Twitter, you would have known about the pillow fight.